It's a lovely good afternoon and thank you very much for joining me on Lunchtime Chat. My name is Taisia Chela, and if you want to be part of this program, you can simply send us a text message or give us a call. Phone lines will only be open at exactly 13:40. That's when I'll be able to receive your calls. But for text messages, you are free to send me those text messages. Now, in case you're also wondering where can you also find us, we're also on other social media platforms. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So you can just follow us on those social media platforms. You can also search for us. We're on DSTV, that's channel 279. We're on Topstar 102 and GoTV on channel 27. This afternoon, we're looking at is skills training a solution to high levels of poverty? Now, a lot of people have been complaining to say we have high levels of poverty in the country. So this also gives us the reason why we asked this question. Should people be given skills in order to just put an end to poverty levels, or just eradicate poverty in short? And in the studio, I'm joined by Mwense, who's coming from Charles Mwense Foundation, and he is the executive director, also the founder for Mwense, Charles Mwense Foundation. Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Chat.
Good afternoon, thank you.
It's good to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, I keep on asking this question. What meal do you know to prepare, like this being Lunchtime Chat?
What meal do I know to prepare myself?
Yes, or you're just the type of a person who only knows how to do the nkungulume style.
Nkungulume style. Just put some meat on the braai stand and that's it, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Even though be cautious right now with this anthrax issue at the moment, so I'm eating more fish.
Okay, so yeah, so in case you're joining us, I know you're preparing something or you're cooking something. Remember not to just eat meat products because of anthrax. Yeah, so if you're that meat lover and knowing that it's lunchtime, you're probably thinking of preparing that. Just be careful of where you're buying that from, looking at what's really happening around. We wouldn't want to hear that you actually have anthrax, or you are, yes, like I mentioned, you have anthrax. So we wouldn't want you to be in that situation. Now, getting back to your foundation, which is Charles Mwense Foundation. What does this foundation do?
Well, the key focus is about providing empowerment to the most vulnerable and the poorest communities in Zambia. If I was to summarize, that's the best thing that I could say. So we do that through multiple ways.
Okay.
But primarily it's education, skills training, and capacity building.
Okay. How different is your foundation from these other foundations? Because we've seen there are a lot of foundations, and when people come up with this foundation, it's either they're doing that because of selfish gains. How different is your foundation?
I think with us, it's more about self-sustainability. So that's what's happened, I think, even with grant-making and fund-making organizations. Its charity has changed from just giving and leading to dependency by beneficiaries to you have to have projects that within 4 or 5 years, it shows that they're able to last on their own and they're able to actually fund themselves in a self-funding whilst still benefiting socially to the community.
Okay, looking at the topic of discussion, is skills training a solution to high levels of poverty according to you?
I think it definitely is. I would say it's one of maybe just 3 solutions that we do have, but it's a long-term process. And I think with skills training it's important because of the fact that the majority of Zambians live in rural and under, how can I say, under average economic conditions. But that shouldn't be a reason why someone shouldn't be able to break that cycle. So I'm saying skills training is important, and to integrate it into the school system up to secondary level so that even when those people can't afford to go to college or university, they have skills impacted on them that they can use to be self-sustainable in the future and generate income, generate revenue for ZRA. It's a whole cycle.
Okay. I noticed in some of the projects that you also look at, you involve learners from grade 5 to grade 9, especially when it comes to agriculture skills training. Why did you pick on that grade, or let me just say that age?
Those are very impressionable ages, and it gives them enough time till they get to grade 12 to learn the skills practically and theoretically that they need for those skills to actually be practical in their lives as adults.
Okay. What else are you either looking at apart from just giving them the practical skills?
In terms of giving them the practical skills, that's just one facet of it. You know, government schools, community schools, for whatever reasons, lack funding in terms of maintenance and development. So such projects, even though it's skills training for the children, they're also income generating activities that allow under our monitoring and evaluation for an income to be generated that the school can use to do things like fix window panes, fix desks. You know, there's multiple things that a school needs that are not always able to access there and then. So that self-sustainability reaches not only to the pupils, but to the school itself, as well as the volunteers that we have who receive a stipend. You know, there's a lot of marginalized youth nowadays that have qualifications, some don't, but have nothing to do. So it provides an opportunity as well to give people a sense of purpose whilst earning something for themselves for helping their own communities. Okay.
I'm sure you're aware there's community development fund, and you find most schools are into using CDF to just also focus on the things that you've mentioned, like either painting the school or just other things that are needed. What's your take on CDF being utilized in form of either buying desks or painting schools?
I applaud and encourage the increase in CDF from the new government, and it's a very viable way of generating funds. However, everything has a plus and a minus. So for me, the minus is I think CDF is more suited for more long-term kind of projects. You want to build classrooms and do a major renovation, but there's day-to-day needs schools have that they do fail to meet. We all live in Zambia, we know what the situation is. So at least those day-to-day needs, week-to-week needs, whilst you wait for CDF and your big project, you need to have something as a school that helps the community that you serve, generates an income, while simultaneously trying to get CDF for your bigger, more long-term projects. So I think all of them work hand in hand. You can't have one without the other.
Okay. What's your take? Like I mentioned, there are other organizations. So even probably during this period, we'll find there are other organizations that will probably come up with a project to do with skills training, and maybe they'll even source money. But at the end of it all, they don't get to utilize the money or funds raised for the intended purposes, such as helping the community or training the community. What's your take on that?
I think each organization is different, and it's very important that whatever ministerial department or non-governmental parastatals that are involved in monitoring and evaluation, I think that needs to come more into play. But for instance, in our case, we've never had any instances of misappropriation for projects in 11 years of existence, because we're literally there to implement. When it comes to the funding generated from a project, it's up to the school to allocate. They know their needs best. So as long as they submit receipts and they submit budgets, we have no issues with how money is spent, how it's allocated, because we don't actually handle cash. The only cash that we handle is when we're actually investing for inputs and expenses to get the project running. Once the project starts generating an income, it's important that the stakeholders who run that project know how to run the finances too. But I think out of 9 schools we've worked with, there's never been an issue of misappropriation. There's been underperformance, or why did you allocate here instead of here? This was more urgent. But as long as you're working responsibly and your intentions are good, I think there's always success.
Okay. What sort of help do you think is needed in rural areas when it comes to project implementation? Looking at the fact that some of the projects that you do are also in these rural areas.
I think in rural areas, the most important thing is even when you're implementing a project, they don't necessarily see the vision and its value. So you have to somehow show them in a practical sense. So what we tend to do is we'll bring people from a similar field or similar backgrounds that are successful, or people that they can look up to, admire and aspire to be. And we have like a peer-to-peer system. So at the moment, just 2 weeks ago, we did something with Musikili, with a very vulnerable school in Kalea village, so that they can see the value of what they're doing. And at the same time, the value of what they're doing is being seen by the community that actually helps them in terms of donors and funds. So even as they're doing what they're doing, they can see the perspective of the donor and what they're trying to do for them, and they're able to share what they're trying to do for themselves as individuals to the donor. So that way you have some synchronization and you're able to understand each other better and implement better.
Okay. You mentioned that there's a project that you recently introduced. Can you just give us or shed more light on the project that you introduced and how unique is the project?
It's a peer-to-peer project. It involves grade 6 and grade 7. So Musikili Primary School, which is one of the most well-known and successful private international schools, and a very vulnerable school called Chibolia Memorial School in Kalea village. So the purpose of this project and what makes it so unique is we get two people from two extremely different walks of life, and we put them in the skills training classes together. They're able to interact and learn from each other in terms of providing exposure to each other of their different scenarios, and two people that would never generally meet or have a chance to have a conversation now get to sit, eat food together, learn skills together, and spend the day together and understand how, for lack of a better term, the other half lives.
Okay. Let's also talk about agriculture, because most people think agriculture is the next big thing. And then we see even organizations also just engaging in agriculture as the only next big thing that will probably help to alleviate poverty. What's your take on that one? Do you also feel agriculture is the only activity that can be undertaken and now without forgetting the inclusion of young people?
I believe agriculture, to use this analogy, agriculture is like if development was a meal, agriculture is like nshima. It's a staple food. So, but you can't live on nshima alone. So when you talk about the next big thing, I wouldn't say agriculture, because agriculture will always be a big thing. I believe the next big thing is STEM, like science, technology, engineering, and it's National Science Week at the moment. They're actually promoting quite a lot of this science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I believe that's the future, because we're in a technology area. So whether you're doing agriculture, find a technology or engineering aspect to it, and that's the way I think development will go further. And that's the next big thing. Once we start merging agriculture and everything else and all of our industries with technology and education and schools.
Okay, but do you think there is enough being played both from the private sector, the non-governmental organizations, and government to ensure that the two are incorporated together?
At the moment, I would say no, but it requires, one, time, and two, enough like-minded people that see the importance and hold enough esteem to it. So at the moment, there's a few organizations that I look at that are heading towards that direction, and it would be great if we didn't have so many separate organizations that chase the same thing. If we could find a way for organizations to merge together towards one goal and work on that goal, rather than you work on your goal here, I work on my goal there. Like, there's a way that I think the non-profit sector needs to collaborate more. Once they collaborate more, the private sector will be more inclined to give funding and support through corporate social responsibility. And then once that's there, the icing on the cake is the government, because you'll be able to show that you're able to deliver through the private sector, and then government can come on board because there's proof of concept and proof of process.
Okay, so what do you think is a contributing factor to the fact that we still see this division amongst non-governmental organizations in ensuring that skills are given to the right people? Where's the gap coming from, or what factors are leading to that? Because you've mentioned, say, it would be nice to see all these people working together.
I think it leads back to a point that you made right at the beginning of this interview of where, sadly, a big proportion of founders, directors of these foundations have their own personal agendas, their own personal views, and their own personal gain at the forefront instead of the vision. So that's why I said it's very important to find the right organizations to implement this, because the reason why it can't be implemented is I think that sector is saturated with people who are helping in themselves through using the facade of helping others. So it's very important that those people need to be filtered out somehow or some way.
But how best can those same people be filtered out? Because I believe coming up with a foundation or a non-governmental organization is simply because you want to help the vulnerable. So how can such mindsets be filtered out if we're to have a lot of vulnerable people trained in survival skills?
We all have relatives that are poor, right?
Yeah.
That would love to help.
Yeah.
But before we're in a position to help them, we have to be first in a position to help ourselves and have the capacity to help because of whatever achievements that we have ourselves. So I think that's the best way to vet, the same way like how you vet a pastor. To me, it's very important when you're grassroots and you got these organizations that you need to have some track record or a known source of income outside of that organization. Like, if, for example, like myself, I run 3 or 4 businesses, so I'm able to, even when there's shortfalls, use money from the business. It's a family organization, I'm able to put things together. But when you find individuals that literally have that and that only, then I think that's a huge red flag. That should always help you filter, like, because someone should have a career, an income, a business, or something outside of that. That should be something you do as a passion. It shouldn't be something you do as a source of income.
But we've seen most people, especially nowadays, we still see young people would come up with a foundation and probably they would even put tags to say, we want to give skills to people. But once the funds are out, we fund the funds who either first go to either them or their family members, then the other change. That's what goes to these skills program.
It's very true, but I think that's, humans are flawed in that nature, so you can't leave it completely up to them, and I believe that's a job of government. This Ministry of Community Development and Social Welfare, if you've got an education project, it should be like I think the oversight on these organizations from a government perspective needs to be more intense, because it's almost like a black market. Like, people aren't submitting their returns, people aren't submitting things. Yes, you went to PACRA, you went to Registrar of Societies, you got a paper. Now, after that, like, who's actually submitting the donations and the grants that they're receiving through multiple avenues, whether social media or not? There's quite a lot of firms, I think the majority, that don't. So government needs to find a way to manage this sector and actually hold it accountable, because I see like there's no accountability, which always leads to more theft.
So are you saying government is not really playing their role in terms of ensuring that whichever foundation is registered is really performing according to what they had stipulated in their either profile or anything? Do you feel government is not really doing their work?
I think they're doing their work in terms of helping people, to facilitating to help people start these organizations and the implementation side of things. But as we know, government's a big vehicle. There's not always the time and the resources to check every single last company, organization, and every single last detail. So what I'd say to that is, I think they need to look into ways that they can do more or do better.
Okay. there are issues to do with corruption. What hand does, or what role does corruption play in the fight towards alleviating the high levels of poverty, not forgetting skills training? Yeah, you find people would want to be trained in skills, but corruption has really taken a center stage in this.
I think corruption is something that this government has stood very strong and firmly on from the beginning, because they understand how severe it is across the board in multiple sectors. So I'm like everyone else, I'm patiently waiting and watching to see what new measures will be implemented to deter and stop corruption, not just in government, but in the private sector, which the government oversees, and anything to do with this country. So like, I'm waiting to hear about measures, because they spoke very highly of integrity and eradication of corruption. So yeah, we'll continue to wait. At least we know it's an intention and a plan of theirs.
Okay. In case you're joining us, this is a lunchtime chat, and we're looking at, is skills training a solution to high levels of poverty in the country? And in the studio, I have Mwense, who is the executive director and also the founder for Charles Mwense Foundation, who's just helping us discuss this topic of discussion this afternoon. So it's up to you, the viewers. What do you think? Is skills training a solution to high levels of poverty? You can send us those text messages, you can give us calls, and always ensure that you reduce the volume on your television set as you get to contribute on this particular program, which is a lunchtime chat. You also have a project that has to do with revolving empowerment fund. Who's eligible to the empowerment fund?
At the moment, we stick to vulnerable women and vulnerable males. So the project, its conception or its inception started from the fact that we have an education, like a scholarship program that sponsors children. So we found that quite a lot of the children that we're sponsoring were in one-parent households. They were either single or double orphans living with a guardian, and then the guardian was failing to provide the necessities for them for education as well as home, despite having a very small business. So we thought there's situations where you have a sponsor for a child, the education is sorted, and then that sponsor, let's say, is in UK or is in USA, they come across their own challenges economically and they're not able to sponsor that child. So I personally got sick and tired of having to tell kids that something that they got so used to having is not available anymore. So we thought to counteract this, even their guardians or parents need to be, if they have a business, they need to be empowered with funds to try and scale up or maintain it. And should the worst happen, a donor steps out and that business has been running consistently for a long time, the parent still is able, or the guardian is still able to handle their responsibilities despite the donor not being there.
So what type of empowerment is it? You mentioned fans empowerment, and then how do you get to monitor the so-called projects? Why I'm asking this is because you find, yes, you try and find ways of either alleviating poverty by empowering these single parents or just the vulnerable people in community. But how do you get to monitor how they're running their projects?
So at the moment, a lot of them are small restaurant owners. There's a few tailors, a lot of marketeers, and poultry farming. Those four seem to be the main sectors. So those are things that are quite easy to monitor. It's not just a case of the revolving empowerment fund, isn't just a case of giving money. I happen to be a businessman and I love business. So we show you how to do your books, record your sales nicely. Like, you need to start keeping a record of things. Okay, how much did you order? So it's more than just giving someone funds. Every week, sometimes every 2 weeks, we're able to just pop in on you 5-10 minutes. How's the business going? You sold how much? Oh, you're going for orders. Sometimes we'll escort you to orders, trying to cut down on your costs. Okay, we'll take you to your orders. We'll come back and be able to have a more hands-on approach into how you handle the money. We won't tell you what to do with the money, like, no, buy this instead of this. It's your decision, but managing the money as it comes in and managing your next order, we're very involved in that process. Because if we're not, we found when we run the pilot, when you're too distant, these people have many challenges. So they'll use business money from the fund because another pressure came from elsewhere, but giving them that mentality of knowing the difference between personal money and business money, I think that's the key to make sure that you actually have successful people that benefit from the fund.
Okay, I notice you deal mostly with women with the same revolving empowerment fund.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you pick more of women ahead of single parents and just women in general?
I think, to be brutally honest, women are more serious. There's many ways I could say this, but they are more serious, like about taking care of their children. We've had experiences with men where you try to empower a man or you empower a woman where there's a man in that house and he's got that gender role as a man. And you find misappropriation, sadly, as a man, I have to say this, comes from men. They're the ones that will drink your money and give money to someone who's not a member of their family. So I just find like women are more serious. If they come to you and say, I need something for this, they're more genuine, and when they do get it, it works for its intended purpose. So yeah, it's safer.
I was laughing at what you said. So they'll either drink, use the money to drink, or also just share it with the person who's not the member of.
Yeah, we all know who that is.
Okay, so maybe just other skills that you also get to train the women, and why you feel such type of skills are important, especially for women.
For us, it's mainly just bookkeeping. And bookkeeping, not just for the business, but bookkeeping in terms of your expenditures for your household. Because there's a lot of us that feel like we don't have enough, we need more, but we don't actually record our incomes as individuals or our expenses, so we don't see how money moves. I think once you actually sit down, even you at home, if you sit down today and just spend a week, every last thing you buy, every last penny that comes in, and you will look at whether you're in the red or in the black. And then you're able now to analyze, okay, did I really need to spend here? Did I really need to spend there? I think that's the most important skill, not just to teach these women, but every adult should have. You should know what's coming in exactly. You should know what's coming out exactly, so you're able to identify what is a need and what is a want. It can't be based on emotion.
So let's also talk about just other skills in general. Looking at the topic of discussion, which is skills training, a solution to high levels of poverty. What other skills would you recommend for just even any other person out there who's probably thinking, because the more you don't have skills, the more you also get to see high levels of poverty. So what other skills would you probably also recommend for just...
I'm very big on practical skills because I've seen this model work. I grew up in England, 23 years. So there's this system of apprenticeships. I would really love a system like that here where, plumbers, bricklayers, these metal fabricators, welders, carpenters, those are skills that are needed on a day-to-day basis all the time, especially in a country like Zambia that's always growing and developing. There's housing shortage. So for Zambia myself, I would say if you're looking for a skill to do that is quite employable and not too expensive and isn't too time intensive, look at skills in trades, because there's no shortage of tradesmen. Like a lot of these developed countries have built their economies and their countries off trades. You find a lot of the middle class are people that are in the building and construction sector, whether they're a bricklayer or whatnot, but government made it possible through apprenticeships, scholarships. So it's something that needs to be looked at here in terms of how we can help those that can't afford to get those skills, so once they do have them, they can be employed and they can pay back their money through tax revenue when they are pay-as-you-earn employees.
Okay. So who needs to be given that task in this case? Should we leave it to government alone?
Government only works when the people move. So the people have to move first, but moving is about pushing the government. So you have to find a way that, again, to group up all stakeholders, you have to form some kind of alliance and lobby government as a unit. Because this one lobbies today, this one lobbies tomorrow, you get no results. When there's a unified, concerted efforts by any stakeholders to any problem, and it's taken to government, and the problem is big enough, the numbers and support is big enough, government has to listen. There reaches a stage where, like there's petitions, there's things of that nature that mean that automatically things have to be heard in Parliament. So I think it's a step-by-step approach. Let's just do the first step first, then worry about the next step. But the most important thing is starting, which is working together and having a clear goal together.
Okay, so in case you're just joining us, this is Lunchtime Chat, and we're looking at the topic of discussion: is skills training a solution to high levels of poverty? Should people start just learning these other skills in order for us to help reduce on the high levels of poverty in the country? So remember, you can send us those text messages. You can either give us calls. I think for now phone lines are open. You can give us those calls. Always ensure that you reduce the volume on your television set. So looking at the same topic, we've heard some people say poverty is in the mind and what you feed your mind with. Is it true that poverty is just in the mind?
There's a very small element of it.
Why?
Everyone's a product of their environment. So it's not just about feeding your mind. Even for your mind to work effectively, there's certain things that need to be in place. Like you need to be comfortable at home. You need to be well fed. Like try and tell someone to be positive when they're hungry and they don't have a place to stay. It's not possible. So I think before you get to the mindset side of things, you need to make sure that the essentials are there, which is food, shelter, and electricity, things of that nature, energy. Only then now can you talk about, okay, you need the right mindset. At least the basic essentials should be there. But when you're asking someone to be change your poverty mindset and he's got nothing, I believe that's a waste of time. That's like telling a war to move. It's not able to move, it's a war.
So, but what happens in a situation whereby, since we're looking at just reducing the levels of poverty, but then you have this person who's just home and then waiting for, I don't know whether they're waiting for manna or what they're waiting for, nobody knows.
But usually somebody who sits around waiting or wasting time, there's other underlying factors. You find there's some kind of substance abuse there. You find that it's either alcohol or drug abuse, people in such, or there'll be some other form of addiction. I don't think it's a concerted, like an active choice that, oh no, I'm going to sit at home and do nothing. They sit at home because they made the wrong choice elsewhere. I think usually it's people, for lack of a better term, that are junkies that end up in that situation not because they don't have the right mindset, but because they are addicted to something. The moment that addiction is kicked, then you get the real them and their mindset changes. You don't even have to change it for them. Like we're all human beings. When we're born, we know this is right, this is wrong, this is... Now that is blurred sometimes by people's addictions. So I find like the majority of people that you just mentioned in that situation usually suffer from some kind of illness, because substance abuse is an illness, mental health is an illness. There's many other different factors. There's PTSD, there's trauma from their childhood, there's people who've been abusers, emotionally, physically. So I think when you find someone like that, is to understand why they're like that first before you tell them, hey, stop sitting on your bum and doing nothing.
Okay. So, but I think there are also just certain people who just sit around and probably say there's nothing really to do. Um, I don't know whether it's because they are lazy, because you said you always need to find a solution. But if we're to come up with a solution to reducing poverty levels, and probably you find there's still people who wouldn't want to learn these other skills.
Um, Very true. That works everywhere else. Like I said, I didn't grow up here. There's people like that even in these developed countries where you find like they get unemployment allowance and benefits for not working. So I think when you find people like that, whether they're in your family, whether they're your friends or whatnot, some people just have to hit rock bottom. You have to just cut them off. And when they've got no other option, no other hand to feed them and get a freebie from, they have no choice but to change their mindset and find a way to earn for themselves. So you don't enable them, is my answer. They do exist. I'm not, like, they exist all over the world.
So how do we get to help those people? Because the more we leave these people around, the more we'll still continue seeing these high levels of poverty, because you have this percentage of people who are not either trained in skills and they expect free things.
I believe the less help is the most help in such situations. Like, you eliminate all help whatsoever until, like I said, the person hits rock bottom. Someone who genuinely wants help because they've reached rock bottom, when you provide them help, it is genuinely appreciated and is genuinely used, and that person can develop. But if you're helping someone before they hit rock bottom, it's just another handout for them. They will take your kindness for weakness, you will be used, and you're not going to add any value or development to that person's life. So I think the main thing to do is such people don't help them till they crash and reach rock bottom. Because when you reach rock bottom, you know, when you're in that closet and you're praying to God, when that opportunity comes, you actually value it. Rather than, like, oh, can I have? You're given. Can I have? You're given. You just create dependency syndrome, and no one's got any incentive to try and be a better person.
At this point, what do you think the young people need if they're also to either contribute to reducing high levels of poverty? What can be done to just help the young people in this country? Because I think they're the ones that have a high number of population in this country. So what could be done?
As high as that population is, in that high population, there's quite a few standout young leaders. Again, it's back to my thing of a team effort. I think the young, need to organize themselves more, because they know what they need more and what they want more than we can't dictate and tell them what they need. They're living in the world that they're living now. They know their generation. They understand their generation. I think they just need to be heard more, but not just hearing every youth. You need to hear from the right youth to find the right solution. So I think it starts from they need to be heard more. I think they should be more youth think tanks. I think those youth think tanks should have more communication and collaboration with government and parastatals that have a vested interest long-term in the development of those youths. So yeah, it's just a communication issue, listening more by the government to the right youths, and then the youths themselves have to present themselves and their case properly in a manner that's understandable and makes sense. Because when it's understandable and makes sense, government will listen.
Okay. What sort of skills would you recommend for this generation? I keep on asking the skills because probably we're looking for opportunities for these young people. But before you just respond to that, let me pick up this call. Hello, good afternoon. You're through to lunchtime chat. Good afternoon. You're through to lunchtime chat. Always reduce the volume on your television, said as you get to callers. You can still search for this particular program on Facebook, because we're on Facebook. In case you want to start listening to what contributions you'll be able to give, you can still just check or search for us on Facebook. but always reduce the volume on your television set. Yeah. So I asked a question: what sort of easy skills? Since we know young people want fast money, they always look for easy things. What sort of skills would you recommend for young people?
That is quite cheap, and I think this one, you just need a data bundle and time. Look into, I think digital marketing is great, where in like the influencer game is, and the social media aspect of advertising and generating sales through social media is kind of blowing up here. It's been a bit slow compared to the rest of the world, but I think that's a very growing and emerging market. So look into ways that you can help with managing people's pages, managing influencers and their brands, getting them into the right places, because that's something that you don't necessarily need a certificate for, and you don't need to go for intensive school for. It's just about putting in the time, a few YouTube tutorials here and there. You can learn skills now. That's the beauty of the internet, just by watching tutorials and doing online classes that are free. So if you're thinking of opportunities as a young person that's relevant to your day-to-day lifestyle, I think helping people with their TikToks and all whatnot, whether it's an individual or businesses, is a very good avenue to get into, I think.
Okay, so that's, I think, for those that have access to the internet. We're talking about those that are in, is it the urban? But let's also look at those
in the rural
yes.
sector. Those for sadly are stuck with our staple food and what we've talked about, these skills, carpentry and whatnot, the trade skills. Yeah. Those of us that are in town and have access to smartphones and our youth, that's the niche I would suggest. But otherwise, you just have to look into production when you're into the rural sector. Look at rearing goats, and I know people have been doing it for ages. None of them have really blown up like that. So it's hard to convince other people to do the same thing, but you have to start somewhere. And I think starting somewhere starts with you as a grown-up knowing, I have to feed myself, I have to get from A to B, I need somewhere to sleep. Take care of those things first, and then you can, dreams aren't constant. One dream comes, it's realized, you feel like it was too small, you get to your next dream. Eventually you get a smartphone, eventually you're able to go to school because you were able to do those same agriculture activities, aqua farming or whatnot.
Mm-hmm. From the time your organization was founded, how many people have you helped and trained? What's the progress like?
In terms of...
What's the percentage, first of all? How many people have you helped? And then from that, then you also get to tell us, how many people, at what percentage would you put yourself when it comes to skills training?
For skills training, or how many people, let's start from the beginning. How many people have we helped in general?
Yeah.
Over the 11-year period? That's something that would take days to sit down and go over, plenty of paperwork to get a definitive figure, but you're talking in the high thousands, you're talking 20,000 plus, not in terms of different individuals, because some programs have the same individuals on a revolving basis. So our first project was Need to Feed, which ran for 4 or 5 years. We used to feed in the community, 800 to 1,200 people every 2-3 months. Calculate that over 4 or 5 years, it's a few thousand meals served. Then we were doing that at 6 or 7 schools. We've sponsored kids, I think, in over 20 schools. Even as we speak now, we have 227 kids on our records, all the way from Evelyn Horn down to grade 3. So if I was to put a number on it, different individuals, I think it may be 2,000 or 3,000 in terms of different individuals. But if you're talking different individuals on a regular basis, meals and things of that nature, you're talking a lot. Because we do the sanitary pad projects, some projects like that, you have a school, you take on maybe the whole of grade 3, community schools, you find someone who's 13 years old in grade 3. So you might do that grade 3 all the way to grade 12. You're giving them all pads for 4 or 5 years. So it's hard for me to put a number on it, but it's thousands.
Okay. Where do you want to see yourself? I think even before I get to that, we have a text message here. It says, by the way, we're in the National Science Week. Yes, we need skills and investments in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That's Patrick Nkoma, Mwami Chipata Boda. Yeah. So he says skills in skills and investment in science, technology, and engineering. I don't know what you think about that.
That's a very good point. Yesterday, I was actually with a gentleman, the CEO for Zambia National STEM Foundation. They had a walk, they had a march as part of National Science Week from the Ministry of Technology.
Pick up this call. Hello. We lost the caller. Okay. Yeah, you were saying
they had a march, a walk from Ministry of Technology all the way to their hub where they have like a boot camp. They've got 3D printers, computers, coding and stuff going on. So part of that march was the Minister of Science and Technology, Honorable Felix Mutati, was part of that. So I think government is starting to realize even that STEM is the future because they're coming on board. On Friday, there's a gala dinner at Taj Pamosi with the Vice President. So they recognize Science Week. They're becoming more active in terms of participation because I don't think previous governments have really participated like this one. So it's good that they recognize it, and it's good that people like Mr. Nkoma actually being able to see that that is the future, because then government and the people's visions align. And that's how you get development.
Okay. I asked the question, where do you see yourself in the next few years when it comes to helping the vulnerable people and just also contributing to skills training in the country?
My vision in terms of that is to be able to establish some, like the way we have a peer-to-peer project now within Zambia, is to establish a peer-to-peer project on an international scale. So that there's universities and colleges abroad that we can bring on as partners, no matter what someone's economic background is, as long as they have the grades and want the skills, they should be able to be paired with a partner college abroad, whether it's South Africa, whether it's wherever, or whether it's even in Zambia through corporate social responsibility and working with local businesses. But that's basically what I want for my beneficiaries, like at least walk away with the qualification and I'll feel like we've done our work, the rest is up to you.
Okay, let's pick up this caller. Hello. I don't know, it seems as though we're having a network problem when it comes to phone calls, but keep on trying. You can still send us that text message. Just tell us what you think about the topic of discussion, which is skills training a solution to high levels of poverty? Do we need to just train people in these skills so that they can also contribute to alleviating poverty levels in the country? So that's the topic that you need to just contribute on. And yeah, you can give us a call. Always make sure you reduce the volume on your television set. Just lastly, what would be your call to government in ensuring that apart from just having learners finishing their schools, they have skills training? I know we have skills centers, but you find in other places, perhaps the skills centers are far. What would be your advice to government in ensuring that we have a lot of skills centers? As before you respond. Hello, good afternoon. You're through to Lunchtime Chat.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah, I'd like to say congrats to Mr. Mwense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's doing a tremendous job. I've seen his work. I'm also one of the beneficiaries as well.
Okay. Okay.
Hello?
Yes, we're getting you. We're receiving your comment, your contribution.
No, I'm just contributing.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Mwense, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you? Who am I speaking with?
This is Mwense.
Mwansamulenga. This is one of he used to run the agriculture project in Mazaboka. He's actually in Lusaka now.
Okay.
Yeah. How are you, sir?
He's Fine.
We haven't spoken for a couple of years. That's a great surprise.
Keep up the good work, big man.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I was asking, what would you advise government when it comes to just ensuring that we have more skills centers, looking at the fact that there's now free education, so probably we have a lot of young people finishing a school.
I think my advice to government would be not to hold the burden solely, because I know people always look at government like, oh no, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? As much as we look onto government, I think government shouldn't look at solving such problems alone. It's a lot about working in collaboration and in partnership with private sector. So if we need more skills training centers, let's say, for example, it was engineering, a skills training center based on engineering. I think government needs to exert more pressure on the private sector. Like there's engineering firms that make millions and millions of kwacha and are able to help to finance these skill centers. So it's about government putting pressure on them and engaging different private sector institutions to do more to give back to the communities that they're actually benefiting from through the sales and operations of their company. And there's no loss to the company because, as you know, when you make charitable donations, as long as all the paperwork is correct, they're tax deductible. So you find that companies are able to reduce their tax bill at the same time whilst helping to alleviate the pressure from government and provide a service to the community that needs them. So I think it's a win-win for everybody if you do things that way.
Okay. And lastly, what would be your call to other foundations or organizations that are probably coming up with projects, and when they're coming up with these projects, they always say they want to help or support the vulnerable people?
Learn to work together. Learn to work together, learning to work together and to work with other organizations and in partnerships. One, makes it easier to scale and makes your vision more realizable in a quicker space of time. Two, it gives you accountability to others. So when it comes to things like finances and how things are being implemented, when you're answerable to other people, you do the right thing. So I think togetherness, working together or working in partnership with other organizations is the most important thing, so that everything can be run how it's supposed to be run and there's accountability and delivery of services.
All right. Okay. First of all, let me say thank you very much for coming through. It was good to have you here just to help us discuss the topic of discussion, which was is skills training a solution to reducing the high levels of poverty. Hoping to see you next time. Hoping to just also come and just witness the projects that you do and how you're just helping these people in these communities. So for me, Taizia Chela, I need to say my goodbyes. Hoping to see you tomorrow, same place, same time, as we get to look at something a bit different from poverty alleviation. Bye-bye, and have a lovely good afternoon.